Oldhamstock Kirk was dedicated to St Michael. It lies in the village of that name, which is near the east coast of Scotland, roughly about 30 miles to the north of the border with England. The name itself means old dwelling place. The kirk is notable for the Hepburn Aisle that's attached to it. Also nearby is a guardhouse built to protect against the body snatchers or resurrectionists. There's also a very rare type of sundial attached on the south-facing wall. The old manse, built in 1677, still stands nearby, but is now known as Oldhamstock House. The armorial panels on the end of the aisle originally came from Blackcastle. This was the ancestral home of the Hepburns, the Lords of Blackcastle. The panel on the left commemorates the marriage of Thomas Hepburn to the Sinclair family. Unusually, although it's conjoined horizontally rather than vertically, as usually the case. You can see the typical engrailed cross of the Sinclair family on the bottom section. The date on it, 1581, does not indicate the date of the construction of the aisle itself probably being certainly 16th century though. The panel on the right with the coat of arms is that of the Patterson family. One of them was a minister of the parish, and they were related to the Hepburns. Many of the ministers were Hepburns. This was because as patrons they had the right to appoint the minister. High up on the south-facing wall is an unusual form of sundial, divided into two portions, one of which would be used for telling the time in the morning, the other for the time in the afternoon. The gnomons, usually made of metal, are here made of stone. There are very few examples of this form of sundial in existence in Scotland. The sundial is thought to date from 1701. This is when there were major renovations and extensions of the church. The date 1701 is carved above the old doorway, which is now blocked up. The burial aisle has a fine vaulted roof. There's no monument to the Hepburns within, but there's thought to be a crypt below. In 1920, it was converted into a chancel for the church, although it's not thought the chancel was ever used. The nave of the church has simple bare walls. This is because the plaster was removed. The blocked up door from 1701 can clearly be seen. The burial aisle has its own wooden door which still exists. Built into the churchyard wall is a fine example of a guardhouse. This was built by the third wife of the minister, Mrs. Moore, in 1826. It was built to guard against the body snatchers or resurrectionists. The idea was that either the members of the family or somebody hired to do the job could stay within the building watching out for the body snatchers for a period of maybe up to 6 weeks, after which the body was no longer any use for dissection. Unusually, an inscription was pasted above the door, and this reads, "And the whole valley of dead bodies and of ashes shall be holy unto the Lord. It should not be plucked up or thrown down forever." It's also been noted a number of the horizontal gravestones were particularly thick and heavy, so this was to act as another deterrence against body snatchers. The church's belfry and bell was a gift from the Broadwood family in 1854. The Broadwoods came from this parish, but moved down to London and became famous piano manufacturers. One of the Hepburns was involved in the scandalous and controversial marriage between Mary Queen of Scots and Lord Bothwell. The Hepburn family motto is "I keep trust." Blackcastle used to stand on a nearby hill, and this is where the village fair used to be held. Nowadays it's held on the village green. The green has a nice example of a market cross, though for many years the column of the cross was present within the gardens of the manse, but was returned to the green and restored. It's also a good example of an old village pump house.